internet's a bit. Okay, we are live. Right.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome and thanks for joining this session where we discuss about the topic of building a community in Singapore today. So Nikki and I, we will be the moderators for today's session, and we are from Heartbeats, a platform where we discuss social initiatives and topics that Singaporeans care about. Now, today we have invited two very special guest speakers. We have Jun Han and we also have Grace, the co-founders of Friendzone, which is a social organization that connects communities through conversations.
Yeah. Thanks, Audrey. And given the pandemic, most of us stay at home, or and more importantly, like behind the screens, for the whole day. And we only mingle with others when it's like really essential. So as a result, we are distant from those around us and even our neighbors or people at work or study places. So given humans are really like social creatures, we can't mingle because it's not because we don't want to mingle, it's because maybe we don't have the means or we don't have the right starting conversations or inertia, catalyst, to start the conversation. So yep, today we have Friendzone with us, and they do an amazing job at connecting communities together. Yeah, either build big communities and residential ones too. So yeah, maybe to Grace and Junhan, tell us more about Friendzone.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Grace. I'm one of the co-founders of Friendzone. And Friendzone is an initiative that brings young adults to live in the same neighborhood together over meaningful conversation. How we do this is by hosting online events. I mean, in pre-COVID times, they were in-person gatherings. But now, due to all the safe distancing measures, we've been hosting online events to bring young adults, who live in the same neighborhood to get to know one another. I mean, for example, the four of us, right, could actually live in the same block and not even know that we might be neighbors. Yeah, and there's a lot of interesting people around you to discover.
Right. Okay, that's cool. Yeah. So, what are some interesting activities that or initiatives that Friendzone has implemented for these communities?
I can answer. Oh, I'm Tam. Hello. My name is Jun Han, but you can call me Tam also. I'm also one of the co-founders of Friendzone. We started, like Grace mentioned, we started in 2018 by hosting neighborhood gatherings. So we booked a pavilion in the neighborhood because we didn't want a closed space. We wanted an open space in the neighborhood. We decorated it with carpets and fairy lights. And then we sent invitations to young people in the neighborhood to just come down and chat. And we asked, like, would you be interested to meet another neighbor? And that was what we hosted for quite a long while. Neighborhood gatherings in the neighborhood until COVID struck, of course. Then we were like, oh no. But now our neighborhood gatherings are online. So we host digital neighborhood gatherings, and we've been experimenting with how to have small group conversations that are meaningful, that are deep and not awkward, while meeting someone new, or meeting a new neighbor who lives around you and connecting over being in the same community, living in the same space. And the heart of our programs is trying to highlight the strengths and the stories that young people already have in the neighborhood. So I think we take an approach to community building that is a bit different. We say, hey, what's already here? How can we connect it? Rather than what are the problems in this community and let us solve it. And that's what we've been approaching Friendzone with for the last few years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I really like your approach of what's already here, what can we do, right? Rather than looking at the issues. And I think it's so amazing how there are just a lot of initiatives that's being done to build friendships and communities among the youth, like what you've also mentioned. So understanding that Friendzone aims to, combat social isolation and also disconnection, and then at the same time also fostering meaningful conversations and friendship among the young adults in Singapore today. How do you guys then measure the impact based on all the initiatives that are being held by Friendzone?
Thanks for the question. Impact is a very new question to us. We started the work in 2018 by just saying, let's try something. And we only, I guess, took a more serious look at impact at the end of 2020, which means we are 1 year into that journey. And we started because people were talking to us and saying, hey, the work that you're doing, the neighborhood gatherings, the conversations that you're hosting, the people you're bringing together might have an impact on mental well-being, social well-being, and maybe you can like measure that and figure out what it has achieved. So last year we looked at how Friendzone's gatherings and workshops and follow-ups and chats, that Telegram chats that we host, have had an impact on the social well-being of neighbors in the community. Social well-being is split into many portions. So social well-being could be how much I trust the other people in my neighborhood. Social well-being could be how much support have I given to my fellow neighbors? How much support have I received from my other neighbors? It also includes things like, do I even catch up with my, I mean, the very simple, the kind of like the bottom line of social well-being. Do I have friends around me, right? Social well-being, like, do I even have friends around me? And yeah, for the last year, we have been taking a closer look at some of these metrics and conducting surveys, conducting interviews with people who have been for our gatherings and follow-ups. Grace, anything to add?
Yeah, I also wanted to add that I think the idea of success also is very subjective depending on who we're talking to. For example, someone who comes to a Friendzone session, they make one good friend, they have great conversation, they take that friendship offline, and then they hang out with that friend outside. It's a different measure of success, for example, than like an organization's point of view, right? Is it about like 30 people who show up for a session, or 50 people, or 100 neighbors that come for a session? So I think when you're also thinking about impact, there's very different perspectives to take. Like, is it the founder's idea of impact and success? Is it the funder's idea of impact and success? And also the idea that impact and success looks different for everyone. It could just be like, oh, now I'm connected to a wider network beyond myself. Or whereas someone else could view it as like, oh, I have made one good new friend. And that to me is like, now I feel more connected to my neighborhood.
I like the fact that you brought up how success is different for everyone. And it's really great that you don't exactly look at success from an organizational point of view, but also the kind of impact that you're making to the youth themselves. So I guess to me, based on what you guys have shared, the impact is really based on the connections that people fostered, based on all the initiatives that you guys have put out there. And I do understand that, Jinhan and Grace, you mentioned that with COVID-19 happening, a lot of the sessions are being put online now. So how has the move to online sessions then engaged the youth audience?
It's actually been surprisingly good in the sense that we've also discovered some people are more comfortable connecting online versus an in-person event. So we've heard stories of people who considered joining a Friendzone event pre-COVID, but they were quite intimidated by meeting so many strangers or so many new people in person. But something about just perhaps home-based learning, right, or working from home, where we're so used to getting on Zoom calls with different people, that the idea of meeting a neighbor or a stranger online is more appealing. So I think that might be one. Another factor I would say is also with constantly changing restrictions and just making it hard to meet new people in this new norm. That has also created another opportunity for people who are more interested with connecting with strangers or making new friends or even getting more connected in their own neighborhood.
I see. Yeah. I totally agree with you. I mean, I think at first, even for me, when COVID happened, it was very hard to get online because we're so used to meeting people face to face, right?
Yeah.
But I feel that now, after joining all the Zoom sessions, it gets really comfortable talking to people online now, because now speaking to people online is like the norm, speaking to people from home, interacting. And I think it's really good that you guys are trying to come up with these online initiatives to engage more people together instead of rather, them being cooped up at home and not talking to other people. Yeah. So I'm just really curious. I mean, Chinhan and Grace, both of you can answer this. Based on all your experience in interacting with youth or even organizing these sessions, what are some organic topics that are of interest to youth that, often sprout about during these sessions?
I think so. Because we run all our gatherings for youth and young adults, which means the age range of between 16 and 35, anywhere between this age range. The most common sentiment that I hear during the share back after having small conversations is that we are all struggling. Right? Even though it can be slightly different forms of struggling, but yet there's still a common theme of like, yeah, we are figuring life out together. And I think that's one common theme that threads all the many different conversations that we had. So some people are struggling because they just returned from overseas, and then they're finding it very difficult to reintegrate into the Singapore community. Some people are struggling because COVID, right? I mean, and working from home all the time, being stressed by having to think about work all the time. And that's a very common theme as well. Some people could be struggling because of family. Yeah, family is also something that comes up quite often, I think, in the small group conversations, where I think also partly because of COVID, where we have to live with our family more often, coming face to face with our family more often. Yeah, so I guess adulting struggles is one way to summarize that. And that's why when we had to when we decided to experiment with themes, right now we are experimenting with different themes for our youth conversations. One of these themes is adulting, because yeah, that came up naturally from the conversations, and we thought that it is something that will bring people in this generation together. Yeah. Grace, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think to summarize also, everyone just talks about life, like all aspects of life, friendship issues, relationship issues, work issues, and even exploring different topics. Like we recently had one on parenting. So that was super interesting, like all the different topics about navigating parental guilt, finding your own life apart from dedicating most of it to your child, or like what happens once your child grows up, or even like changing parenting styles as your kids continue to evolve and grow older. Like next week we have a session about friendships, and like the following week we're doing one on fitness. So gathering, still the same concept of gathering young adults in the same neighborhood, but giving them the opportunity to talk about topics that they themselves care about. And even within those broader frames, you can identify like subtopics and different discussion points. So yeah, I mean, I think that's why like what the heart of what we want to do is to get conversations going between different people. And the idea that everyone has a perspective or story or experience that will be able to benefit another.
Right. So, like there's a lot of different topics that you've talked about, and it's really very current. I think the questions that come up are really very reflective of what each of the youth are going through. And I think there are a lot of themes that are common. So, all of us go through the same things, and like what you mentioned, it's quite interesting, parenting and all. Yeah, it's great for people to give suggestions to each other, because there's no like one right answer to it. Right. So yeah, as much as the youth who attend your sessions are learning from each other, based on your past experiences, what are some learnings that your team has gained through all these sharings?
I guess the one thing that comes up for me is that there are, firstly, right, when we spoke to a lot of young people before we started running neighborhood events, we asked them, do you know people who live in your neighborhood or not? Do you know young people who live in your neighborhood or not? Most people will answer, I don't really know. At most, I have like, one or two secondary school friends who I catch up with. And then my neighborhood is a mature estate, all elderly. Then that's their next sentence. And then I was very curious, right? Because if everybody is saying that their neighborhood is a mature estate, then everyone must be lying, right? Because like where are all of y'all staying if everyone's neighborhood is a mature estate? Punggol, yeah. Then there's some people like to quote like Punggol and Sengkang, but it cannot be, right? It's not all the young people are living in Punggol and Sengkang, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing I learned was like, yeah, there are a lot of young people in the neighborhood. Sometimes it's the fact that we choose not to see each other also. Like sometimes when we come back from work, we just want to look at our phones, quickly enter the lift and go up. We don't even take a look at each other. So yeah, that's one learning point. And then the second being that actually there are people who also want to know other neighbors around them. It's just that there's no way to break this invisible barrier. And I think our work is trying to find out how to break this invisible barrier, and then how to continue the conversations and friendships from there. Yeah.
I think to add on, it's also the idea that what matters, like what happens next matters too. So it's one thing to meet someone new in your neighborhood, but so much of the experience is also requires initiative. For example, like you meet someone new at an event, how do you convert that new acquaintance into a good friend or then into a close friend, right? That also requires some amount of follow-up. So the idea that ownership is also for the person who comes for the event to take. And that's something that's a bit out of our control too. So just hoping that, Friendzone at least provides that first step for young people to realize like, whoa, look at all the other young people who live around you. And the kind of interesting or amazing conversations you can have with them. And then hopefully the platform is a good enough first step for people to continue the conversations and deepen the friendships after.
Right. So when you talked about some places being ulu, right? So I think nowadays there are BTOs that pop up in the middle of like those more mature estates. I think MacPherson had one, then especially in the north there were some that are popping up. I think it's UT area, there's some that are popping up. So yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of opportunity for you to find others or like-minded individuals. Yep. So when you talked about breaking the invisible barrier, it's really true. Like one meetup could be just some like just a starting point to deeper friendships, but it takes onus on mutual sides to how to develop it. So speaking on that point, what's the long-term vision for Friendzone and how will you sustain this vision?
I would say that the long-term vision is that Singapore would be a friend zone. That people would experience their neighborhoods as a place where they have friends, and that they would also be open enough, courageous enough, welcoming enough, friendly enough to get a conversation going with someone new that they meet. Yeah. Sam?
My personal like small vision is I hope that I can be at the lift lobby one day and then I can recognize the young people around me. I know their names, I know what they do, I know that I can approach them for help about something. That's my own like vision for myself, and I hope that that's the same for like young people in Singapore in general. Yeah.
Thanks for those insights. I mean, I'm totally guilty of what you guys have mentioned also. I mean, when I step into the lift, I don't exactly say hi to my neighbors. So I feel like I really learned a lot from this session, and I definitely also will try to, do something that builds up a community around my area. Because I feel that, even looking back, a lot of my friends, they stay outside of the community that I live in. And therefore, I feel that there isn't much inertia or an initiative to really try to make friends with my neighbors around the community. But I do understand that it's also very important as well. So thanks so much, Grace and Jinhan, for sharing these insights with us. I feel that especially nowadays, we see that more youths, they really feel the need to create more conversations and finding and offering support to other human beings as well in order to build relationship. So I'm just glad that Friendzone is there as an organization to really be able to support that. So thanks so much. Nikki, do you have any other questions that you would like to ask them?
Yep. Thanks for sharing with us. So now maybe we can look at some of the questions that the audience has asked. Let's see, and a nice feature by the avocado on the screen. Do those appear at your events too?
Sometimes.
Right. So there's a question, because I think back to the point in the earlier part where you mentioned that when youth span across like 16 to 30, 35, and the audience might have different stages of life, so might have different questions. So this audience is asking, are the content kind of like curated for different groups, or is it like a full everyone in the same group, kind of like sharing the same conversation?
So I think we've been experimenting with different ways to design the session, in the sense that when we group people into breakout rooms, sometimes you group them based upon similar life stage. Sometimes you group them based upon how close physically do they live to one another. Sometimes we intentionally group them by diversity, right? And I think that across all the sessions, it has been interesting because no matter what kind of different way we want to group them, there's everyone can talk about something. Like there's a topic that people can connect on and resonate on. Yeah, so I would say that has been another learning point for us, just that no matter how different people are, everyone can kind of offer a different insight or story to each other. Because in our events, we have open questions, right? And an open question is something like, what has been something that's been weighing on your mind that you would like to ask the group about? So that kind of open question, it could be like, when is the right time to define the relationship, right? And no matter what age or life stage you're at, different people also offer different perspectives on that story or on the question being asked. Yeah. Sam?
I mean, nothing much to add except that just now I was talking about struggles and it seems like no matter what age, as long as it's kind of within this like adulting, trying to figure life out age range, people do connect over that similar struggles of like I am figuring life out also. And even if a 30 plus person and like let's say 19-year-old is in the same room, they frequently also connect over like, hey, I mean, I'm figuring our life out, you are also figuring life out. And yeah, that's a common topic. Grace, you wanted to add something? Is it?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say that that's exactly one of the value of knowing people in your neighborhood, that idea of intergenerational friendships or intergenerational experiences. I think that quite rarely do we have an opportunity to talk to different people of different life stages. And it's not that the life stages are like vastly different either, but I mean, a 19-year-old versus a 25-year-old are going through different life stages. So it's sometimes nice, when you see a breakout room with like an undergrad, a young working adult, a stay-at-home parent, and they're all in the breakout room kind of like sharing with one another about different life stages. Like the working adults hearing about like, oh, this is what an undergrad is going through studying from home now with home-based learning. And then an undergrad is hearing from like a stay-at-home parent, like the joys and struggles of being a parent. So I think that kind of conversation is also very valuable to have, to get insights from like the different life stages.
Right. It's interesting. Like, I think individual who have gone through something, maybe like a 25-year-old, have a lot to offer to a 19-year-old too. Like, the generation isn't that far apart. And actually, 16-year-old to 35-year-old, is that one generation? Half a generation.
I don't know.
I don't know, man.
Generation. Maybe.
Maybe even a 19-year-old can also provide some advice to a 35-year-old. You never know, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we always talk about mentorships now. Like nowadays, there's a lot of like mentoring programs. I mean, I'm also wondering, like, in addition to being a mentor-mentee relationship, we could also just be friends, right? I mean, it's another type of relationship that two people can have without being like, I need to teach you something kind of thing. Yeah.
So we have another question. So it's on how do you, maybe it's more of the outreach part. How do you guys reach out to the youth, and what is there something common that attracts them to come for events?
How do we outreach? I would say with hopefully good marketing. I mean, firstly, our name Friendzone is quite clickbait. People are like, haha, what's this Friendzone thing, right? And they think it's like some dating thing or whatever. Then they click and they're like, oh, okay, it's like about friendship. So, I mean, hopefully one is the name is kind of catchy. Also, we do our best to do marketing through the various channels that young people use. So we're on like TikTok, we're on Instagram, Facebook. What else are we on? Oh, we're also connecting with other youth sector organizations, as well as neighborhood lift posters. So hopefully, like, we've had some people who come for Friendzone events because they saw a Friendzone poster and they were like, oh, what's this thing? Then they like QR code scan and then sign up for event. So yeah, those are some of the ways that we connect with young people. We also write quite a lot of content relating to friendships. So if you check out like our Instagram, our blog, we tackle topics related to like navigating seasonal friendships or constant friends, like how do you navigate that, or supporting a friend through a breakup. So different topics related to like the topic of friendship. So hopefully that's another way in which we capture young people, because when friends like reshare their socials, then people are like, oh, what's this thing? Yeah.
Right. So it's really the power of social media and the internet to like spread the word organically.
Yes. Word of mouth is a big thing.
Nice. Okay, there's another question from the audience. For the Telegram group that you're talking about, do you have like a link that you can join or something? Like this guy wants to join. I think like interested to be part of the community, to be beyond the socials. He asked like, what ways are there to be closer to the communities that you have?
So one way is, of course, by attending the gatherings when we come to your neighborhood. Right now, we are kind of keeping the Telegram group to semi-closed to people who have attended a Friendzone gathering before, or friends of people who have attended Friendzone gathering before. If you are interested to join, I mean, feel free to join the next neighborhood gathering that we are here, or we host if we don't come to your neighborhood, if we are not coming to your neighborhood so soon, we host a monthly gathering every month called Friendzone Friday, which you can also find on our website and by just Googling Friendzone Friday. And if you come for that, we can also add you into the neighborhood chat. Yeah, the reason is because I guess we hope that everyone can experience what a neighborhood gathering is like first before being added into the chat. Otherwise, there will be a lot of people in the chat who might not know what they are here for, and then that the whole spirit of the chat might shift.
Okay, right, nice. So it's a very curated group who understands like friend zone and the reasons why they're there. Okay, so there were like 2 or 3 questions about that in the chat. So yeah, do sign up for the events. You can join the Friend Zone Fridays.
Yeah, we can definitely share it to you guys also after the event. I mean, after this session, so that you guys are able to access the website as well. All right, any other questions, Nikki?
No, we don't have any questions.
All right, so thanks everyone again for attending the session with us, and thank you Chin Han and Grace for also sharing about your experience and what Friendzone has to provide. So we hope that all of the audience here have gained some insights and takeaways about the ways we can build a community or how friendships can also be forged with your own neighbors. So please have a good rest, have a good Sunday, and of course, if you have any other burning questions that weren't answered during the session, just feel free to reach out to any of us, and we'll see how we can address them. So thanks so much.
And I left the link to Friendzone's blog in the chat. So you can just reach out to them or just follow their Instagram, follow their socials. It'll be great. Right. Thanks, and thanks to the live audience as well as thanks to Chin Han and Grace for joining the session.
Thank you. Bye.